Okay, the Avengers. What the hell can I say about this movie that every friggin' person on the planet hasn't said so far? It's a really good movie. It's sort of this miracle of a movie that it could come together at all, and that there's been all this build-up to it using other movies to build up to this one giant movie with all these celebrities and these, copyright hassles to get all these heroes together, and they did it, and they have this good story, and they have this good action and good comedy, blah, blah, blah. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sort of talk about this movie in two ways. I'm going to do one sort of as, a critic, sort of like just judging the film as a whole. And then one just sort of like my personal take on it, just sort of how I feel in general. I mean, talking about it from a critical standpoint, it is sort of this amazing movie in that it's using, like I said, it's been building up for years and years. And it's a huge gamble, and it's a gamble that is and will probably continue to pay off because the build-up's been unbelievable, but also the response has been unbelievable, and for good reason. It's good characters. Characters are already set up, from other movies that were also successful. It's a good story. A basic story. A guy wants to take over the world, superheroes stop them. Very basic. And you have some very funny writing, some talented writing. It's hard to get these characters together and give them all a story arc and give them all background stuff, and it succeeds. You actually do like these characters. In fact, there's one point where a character does die, and I did find myself actually going, no! Like, legitimately pissed off, and I'm sort of like, you know what, that's good. That's a good reaction to get. And the action is really great, as I'm sure you've heard. Everyone's comparing it to the Michael Bay films, Well, why can't Michael Bay do this? And I see why now. At first I was like, why is everyone comparing it to this? I see why now, because it's essentially sort of the same kind of action scene going on, where it's the city and things are flying around and people are jumping on top of other things and fighting and stuff like that. And this is really creative in how they shoot it, really action-packed. The stunts are very creative. The creatures they have to fight are very creative. The ways they fight them are very creative. And they keep throwing new stuff at you. And they keep having good, funny jokes on top of it. And a lot of that comes from these characters' personalities, which you do like and you do enjoy. So, like I said, I sort of feel bad I can't go into too much more detail, without giving spoilers away and such, because you probably just heard it. I mean, everyone's just going gaga for this movie, and not without due cause. I mean, it's a good movie to go gaga over. Now let's get into just what I personally like just what it sort of did for me. I do really like this movie. I'm glad I saw it, but the reason I think everyone's going really nuts for it, like really crazy, is the last 45 minutes. The last half hour to 45 minutes, the action is just so good, and the comedy is so good, and it's just a ton of fun. Before that, it is a good movie. But I'm sort of watching this, because I was going in after all the build-up, and I'm saying, okay, this is good, nothing great. I mean, this is hard to put together. But I'm not, like, really invested. I'm not like, what's gonna happen, I'm not that sucked in, because, like I said, it is just a very basic good guy, stop bad guy from taking over the world story. And the other thing that sort of stops me, just personally, from, like, really getting on the train of, this was incredible, this wasn't bad, in a sense it is, and people that want to go see this movie are gonna love it and really enjoy it, and I really had a lot of fun. The reason I just personally don't get, like, that, the testosterone and stuff like that, is because I didn't really grow up with the Avengers. The stuff I grew up with is, like, X-Men and Batman, even a little bit of Transformers and so forth. So that's the stuff, like, that's why I like the first Transformers movie. It's like, I did grow up with this, and I was excited to see something I grew up with just so massive and so huge. So anyone that grew up with these characters and stuff, I mean, yeah, you're gonna be in heaven. I mean, this is a great movie for you people. And even those who didn't, you can follow it okay, and you can get into it okay, and you can enjoy the action, you can enjoy the comedy. It is a comic book movie, and it really, really soaks that in, It doesn't try to really disguise it too much. In fact, I remember when it started, and you see Samuel L. Jackson with the eye patch and the long coat. I mean, I snickered a little. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is definitely a comic book movie. You know, some of this is going to be a little hard to take seriously, but you know, you don't question it for long. You get sucked in pretty quick. You know, and that's one of the challenges of a comic book movie. And again, for this to come together as well as it did is pretty unbelievable. For me personally, it's like I don't really get behind something like that unless it's something that I really have, like, you know, you could argue sort of this nostalgic attachment to. So if any of the X-Men movies were like this or this big, I mean, I'd be like, this is the great, there is not the eye, you know, I'd be all over it. Or actually like the first Narnia movie, which even I acknowledge is not a perfect movie, you know, but it's like, I grew up with that, I read that, and oh, that's so action-packed, and they're making it so huge and epic, and I love it, even though there's, of course, problems with it. So I guess that's why you won't see me necessarily on, you know, the train that everyone else is on. If this is the most epic movie and stuff, it's really, really good. And people want to see the Avengers be really big and really good, you're gonna get that. And you're gonna love it. And as a movie critic, I have to acknowledge this is a very, very good film. Any problems I have are very, I guess, kind of nitpicky. I mean, people are sort of saying, well, this has taken the comic book movie to a new level. In a sense, it is. It is more from sort of a marketing standpoint. I don't even want to say marketing necessarily, but in terms of what you can do with building up a movie and getting characters in a movie and so on and so forth. Like I said, I don't think anything quite like this has been done with a film where you're literally making movies just to build up to one giant one. It's not like a trilogy or something like that. You're literally just making films to build up to this huge one, and it legitimately pays off. I can't think of a time that's really happened where that was like the goal, you know, the purpose of making these other films, on top of making money, of course. But if I'm gonna nitpick at all, I mean, I'd say a little thing. I heard there was about 2 hours apparently cut out of this movie, which is like, what, that make like an over 4-hour movie. But oddly enough, I can see that because there's scenes, for example, when there's a scene where like the Avengers aren't getting along, and they sort of have these, you know, there's a scene they're in the room and they're all sort of arguing, stuff like that. I remember thinking to myself, well, this sort of, it's like, yeah, it was set up, but not to this degree. This almost seems a little rushed. And then there's another scene, you know, Captain America finally comes up and he's shouting orders and people are following him. I remember thinking, well, there's never really a scene where it's like, yes, let's follow him, the leader, I'm behind him, I'm totally, let's go. You know, it's just sort of, okay, he's barking orders now and we'll follow it, and he does it okay, but there was no, hey, here's where he's the hero now. Actually, a lot of, I was thinking like Lord of the Rings and Narnia both had that problem too with their with Aragorn and William. I never thought they had that, you know, yes, I follow you. No, there's still, nothing happened. You know, so stuff like that, little things like that, you know, or Loki, who just wants to take over the world, and it's where these creatures sort of come from is a little vague, and why he sort of wants to take over the world is a little vague and stuff. So when I think of something that's really changing, you know, like, you know, changing the playing field in terms of like a genre, I do actually think of, whether you like it or not, something like The Dark Knight. You know, what's that about? Well, that's about anarchy. That's about, you know, discovering, you know, who you are and where you're going. And, you know, at what point do you know, is it good to be this side and it's good to be another side, and the definition of good and evil, and, you know, it's sort of stuff that I guess in some way comic books do talk about, but that just took it to a new grisly nature and sort of this uncomfortable nature. You know, the Heath Ledger performance was so good, and, you know, the way it's shot. This, it's still, there's a bad guy, take over the world, superheroes stop him. You know, and for that, it's great, and it's done wonderfully. I just, from a storytelling point of view, I didn't see anything that new, with the exception of the build-up to it. But, again, for what this is, it's wonderful. It's a great action flick. In the last half hour and 45 minutes, you'll be laughing, you'll be cheering, you'll be, you know, rooting for him, and you'll be, the Hulk has some great scenes. Finally, we get some good Hulk scenes. God, we've had 2 movies. I mean, one god-awful, one just merely okay. Oh, you know, that's the other thing. The one last thing I'll talk about, because a lot of people are talking about, well, how's Ruffalo replacing Edward Norton? Surprise! And I really like Edward Norton. I think Ruffalo's better, actually. I like the way he plays him. He plays him very differently. He plays him where Edward Norton was sort of the smart guy, and he's trying to figure stuff out, but he's trying to keep his head in stuff. Ruffalo plays it very much like a person who's really been through hell, and he just looks like he's been through just this, like he's been through a war or something, but he's finally found that peace, and he's just trying to keep that peace and keep that inner quiet and stuff, even when people are trying to sort of, like, Stark is constantly trying to egg him on, and he's just like, yeah, no, you won't get me, that won't work, and blah, blah, blah. But you can tell he's really been through a lot, too, and it was a very well-done performance and very different. You know, it was a very different take, and I really liked it. I like his take on it a lot. Everyone else, Scarlett Johansson is great. They all have, like, you know, these setouts. Even some of these side characters you barely know, I mean, get set up and get personality and stuff like that. So it's for a film like this, like I said, it's very well done, very nicely put together. I see why people are calling it great and epic and stuff like that, and you really should. Like I said, this is the critical side of me that says, yes, this is very, 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 very good. For me personally, it's like, I wanted this in X-Men, I wanted this in, you know, in something else I grew up with, but I didn't grow up with Avengers that much, so I'm not quite on the, you know, this is the perfect movie boat. But it is a very nicely done, good film. I'm probably just sort of repeating myself right now. In terms of who like it, Avengers fans, comic book fans, action movie fans, comedy fans will probably get a big kick out of it. In terms of people who wouldn't like it, I don't think, again, a lot of people I know that saw Dark Knight, you know, who don't like comic book movies, got into it. They got into how grisly it was and how real and grim it was. I don't know if this is a movie like that, where even if you don't like comic books, like, this will change you. Like, this will be, you know, sort of that tipping board to suddenly make you like, because it is silly. I mean, you just look at the costumes they're wearing, it's silly, but it's very entertaining, and I don't think anyone that goes in not wanting to see a comic book movie is gonna like this. I mean, it's very much a comic book movie, and it swims in it, and it loves it, and it really enjoys the fact that that's what it is, but still takes its audience seriously, and has some really strong writing with the humor on this. I mean, really strong writing and good character interactions. So I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. You've heard everybody praise the hell out of it. It's a good flick. I mean, go check it out. It's a lot of money thrown at it for the effects. Everything's pretty good. So nothing too much else to report because everybody's already said it already. So good film. That's all I got. Take care.